radiant foci of God's love. I am Chamuel, enfolding you all in a pink flame of universal majesty. The realization that that vibrant spark of God identity that is within you is now and forever a part of the glorious Godhead, a part of the universal fabric of all that is and all that is beyond the ken of mankind's imagination, all that reaches that lofty point of consciousness that is the heart of God. God's heart is a mighty fortress of divine love, flooding over the cone of divine love as the white-hot, pink-tinged lava of infinity that can never be moved by human conduct or human knowledge. Humanity, from time to time, are moved by the tide of their emotional consciousness, which seems to dominate their world for a moment, and they are unable, it seems, to stop the whirl of that consciousness and of that emotional activity in all of its human viciousness. But I want you to understand the calming power of divine love. I want you to understand the authority of divine love. For although the manifestation of the plume of power and faith that flows out into the world to create divine mandates, as mighty as it is no mightier than the love of God in its universal qualification of all that man really is. The fruit of the soul's majesty is to be found in that overflowing stream of cosmic love. Therefore, tonight, beloved ones, while I am speaking to you, I am determined to create in the hardest of hearts a sense of that universal majesty and joy, that cup that runneth over into the world order, and is the fruition not only of love itself, but also of power and wisdom. The Lord Mahachohan, the representative of the Holy Spirit, is fully cognizant of the fact that in addition to containing the aspect of power and wisdom, the Holy Spirit is the very embodiment of the action of divine love. For action is necessary in the affairs of humanity if they are to practically get things done. And get them done they must if mankind is to beat the timetable of the cosmic clock as it is geared to humanity's present renderings of darkness rather than light. For men love the activities of darkness even more than they love the activities of light in many cases. I do not say this of most of the children of the light, who are aware of the mighty tides of holy innocence that flows forth with all of its joy and the fruit thereof. O mankind of earth, awaken, awaken from all of the dark sleep that enables mankind to allow even their conscience to be seared with a hot iron that blunts the course of divine reality flowing and seeking to flow in the channels and matrices of their individualized life. I desire tonight to impart unto you a vital touch of heavenly reality. I desire then to invoke from my band of cosmic love those specific angels of divine deliverance in all of their magnificent God power, that you may tonight be made aware of their presence in this room, in this building, and throughout this state, and throughout this nation, and throughout the world. For the activity of divine love tonight, as a giant ice cream cone, will become manifest within the hearts of all upon this planetary body. I do not deny that the lords of karma will temper the manifestation of this great power of divine love until some may not even hold any more than a little taste of that which is the vital energies and glory of God. I am an archangel. My consciousness is not, as a rule, involved in the tiny, finite manifestations of human consciousness, but is ever in its lofty driftings before the beauty of God, holding the consciousness of all vital awareness of the penetration of divine love throughout the realm of heaven. Do you understand, then, that it is not every day that I am also manifesting as I am manifesting tonight, in the sense that I have focalized a far more than ordinary penetration of the action of divine love by the power of the infinite flame of immortal grace. Ho, thou angels of the sacred fire! Ho, thou angels of the sacred fire! Ho, thou angels of infinite love! Descend now, and let mankind feel the immortal spirals of universal descent, the descent of the love by which the worlds were framed, the earth standing in and out of the water element, the power of love that originally awakened and quickened each imaged form into that vital God manifestation that is the soul of universal love. As the descending love comes forth and manifests like a bolt of lightning in gentle termination of mankind's involvement in all psychic actions and activities, in all activities that are of darkness, we find that light replaces the activity of darkness within the force field of every individual upon this planetary body. And by the vital penetration of that love, there ensues a sudden peace and joy such as man has not known before. By this magnificent penetration of mankind's force field of thought and feeling, the word of the living Christ, by the peace-commanding presence of immortality, speaks and thunders. Peace, be still, and know that I am God. Every archangel bows the knee. Every angel bows the knee. And every tongue confesses that Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. For the Spirit is reality. And the Spirit ever brings awareness to mankind, whereby through the power of that awareness, individually embodied souls are able to cast off the dark garments of human carnality and consciousness and enter into that blazing awareness of the life that beats their heart. The life that beats their heart is the life of God, and the life that beats their heart is the authority for their own life stream, if they will understand what that authority means, what that authority can mean, if they will seek to precipitate a manifestation of reality upon the screen of life, and cease the manifestation of those pseudo-actions of human laws involving human activities that can never produce that God happiness and sustaining radiance of the sacred fire, which is the power within every man, woman, and child to raise them into that mellowness of being that will express the gentle ministrations of divine love in all of its great raising power, whereby mankind can ascend out of the pits of darkness and the infernos of human unhappiness that are generated by human misunderstandings and the continuation of those misunderstandings throughout the ages. O mankind, will you see and perceive the power of divine love as the activity of God? Does it make any difference whatsoever how that Spirit manifests, so long as the Spirit of God good manifests, and so long as that Spirit is sustained vitally within your own God presence and is delivered into further manifestation within all areas of your life? Oh, beloved ones, the generating power of the sacred fire, is captured within the mind of the Holy Spirit, within the mind of Christ, within the mind of those men who have the mind of Christ. The divine consciousness that pours forth the divine radiance does so by an activity of cosmic law. This is not a manifestation of human consciousness, but a manifestation of universal consciousness that spake of old unto mankind by his prophets, and is the power of the world, mother in cosmic action through the sacred fire, producing those matrices of thought and feeling that will affinitize all mankind, both male and female, both bond and free, in the spirit of God good, whereby mankind can at last surrender unto their own mighty God presence the fullness of all that they know of as selfhood. When mankind surrender themselves to the power of divine love, there is no activity of loss, but only a magnificent activity of cosmic gain, whereby the soul is able to ascend into the heart of the flame, there bestowing on all mankind the fruit of life. To all be kind arouses in the hearts of men the stream of light that pours out then and fills the world with universal light and loveliness that beams through starry night of angel beings e'er so bright that fill the mind with God delight. O beloved mankind, the fruit of cosmic law is within the power of divine love. Do you recall how Paul, the apostle born out of season, came forth with the admonishment saying that love abideth forever? Forever means through all ranges of manifestation. It means in the now of manifestation as well as in the then of manifestation. It means in the future realm of manifestation, and it means so long as the world shall stand. Out of the heart of peace, out of the heart of love, are mankind delivered into awareness of the power of the sacred fire. Individuals sometimes feel that their own spirit is choosing what is the will of God, whereas in reality the Spirit of God, like a pillar of fire beaming through the night of human consciousness, or a cloud of witness by day, carries mankind even today to the promised land where the beauty and perfection and reality of God is manifest unto all. Do you understand the perfection of the law, whereby the universal consciousness is able to encompass around about all mankind and flood upon them that light which will make them no longer blind, but men and women who see and see clearly the resolution of cosmic intent? Do you know, O mankind, that the latent image within all ought to be developed by the Holy Spirit functioning through man and working out the individual destiny of man according to the divine plan? What is it then in mankind that frustrates the manifestation of this image of perfection, save mankind's sense of limitation and false sense of condemnation, whereby individuals, by reason of the fact that they are aware of having failed at some time or other, seem to sustain the momentum of their own self-condemnation, which is so easily activated by others or by the projection of thoughts from the dark realms? Mankind do not understand the activity of the sinister force. The sinister force is fighting for its life upon this planet, for it has already lost its life by reason of the fact that it has actually sought to disobey the law of life, the law of God, descending to the human level. The sinister force then seeks to vampirize mankind, and to draw from him and to siphon off from him those vital energies which are the consecrated energies of the Holy Eucharist. Mankind should understand this law of that which seeks to blind them to the fact that by criticism, condemnation, and judgment, mankind actually defraud themselves of the power of universal love. Through the loftiness of divine love, they are able to kindle and rekindle the beauty and perfection of God without limit in both the finite and infinite realm. For mankind should understand this law. I go unto my Father to prepare a place for you, that where I am, ye may be also. They should understand then their own I am presence as the haven of the sacred fire, into which all drink, into which all manifest the realities of God. For the individual connection of each life stream with their own beloved I am presence is the manifestation of that point of contact whereby they are all able to receive the self-same manifestation of the one Spirit. When mankind understand that, they are not so prone to be able to raise their voices in the jangle of human discord, nor are they so prone, I might add, to admit to their consciousness those elements of human criticism, condemnation, and judgment which rob mankind of peace and joy through the universal love and the holy happenstances that are of God. These are divinely directed. These are the fruit of the Spirit which produce love and joy and peace. I am an archangel, and my devotion unto God is shared with you tonight. But when I come into your realm, I come into your realm with that awareness of the holy and sacred fires that clearly reveals the extent to which mankind have allowed themselves to fall, in the sense that they have not acknowledged the power of the Godhead in their own lives. They have given power to those darkened images which are idols in the mart. These idols in the mart seek to usurp the power of God in man and to rob him of his divine and immortal birthright. By the admission of the sacred fire of divine love into the chalice of human reality, every individual is able to begin to sense the divine presence, and through their own sense of the divine presence, they will chastise themselves, in effect, producing those judgments upon themselves which will clean and chasten their own house of being, until at last it manifests the whole will motivation of the Godhead, each one then seeing for themselves that production of truly Christ and God magnificence which vests all with the wedding garments of cosmic reality and abolishes forever darkness. For if man does not do this, seeking to propel himself forward in the light, then the abomination of desolation comes upon him. For through the carnal mind, the extinguishing of the individual monad is begun. Each yielding to the powers of the carnal mind is a yielding to the power of death and darkness. Each yielding to the power of light is a yielding to the power and radiance of immortality, whereby you are able to see through the aperture of those tiny years which loom before you as the balance of your life, that opening into the doorway of light, into the palace of light, which will be revealed to you in greater extent by the goddess of light. Then you will be able to see even more clearly how your lives are held with Christ in God, how you are sustained by the power and pressure of divine light. No, beloved ones, it is not easy for the human vessel, those who speak in our name, those who receive our words, those who cherish your hearts and offer themselves unto God for you. This is not easy, but I want you to understand it is a fulfilling of heaven's intent to bring to you in this latter days of the cycle the conscious awareness of the golden age of peace and tranquility, whereby your hearts may cherish one another with that gentle cosmic caress that is like an angel's wing brushing across the face of your consciousness, and thereby contacting you with a greater light and a greater radiance and a greater awareness of the power of life to continually not only beat and sustain your hearts, but sustain your entire consciousness in those levels of God being which you are destined and fitted for. I am Chamuel, and my power is devoted to your light tonight. I summon all the powers of heaven that are under my command by his grace, and I ask them all to descend into the chalice and force field of this retreat, that it may be hallowed by the presence of the angelic host as never before manifested amongst you. Understand then that we are bringing the great power of eternity into the conscious awareness of this moment in time, in the net of time. Will man understand then that as we bring about this phenomena of the manifestation of the angelic host and kindle the feeling of universal love within the force field of your consciousness, this is the commencement of a greater measure of communion with heaven, sustained for the glory of the golden age, and that mankind at last will be able themselves to summon at will the presence of the angelic host and bring this descent about whensoever they desire it for the blessing of mankind. We do not mind that you tug upon us or upon our hearts. We do not mind that you seek to call to us for aid and assistance. We regard this as a cherished opportunity which we ourselves ever hold dear, and we hold it dear for each of you, and there are no exceptions. Can you say that about yourself? Are you able to say at this hour that there are no exceptions? Are you able to surrender those egoistic manifestations of human vengeance, stifling in your consciousness all vestiges and remnants of human criticism, condemnation, and judgment, and surrendering it all unto your God presence to receive that ampule of cosmic forgiveness which God imparts to every heart when every heart surrenders the ego unto him and receives in return for that surrender the blessed surrender of the Godhead unto the selfhood of each individual, vesting them with such a very marvelous activity of cosmic law in cosmic action that it is difficult for mankind to envision this in their outer consciousness. I say unto you all then, arise in the name of God and recognize the power of light. Stand up for the light, and the light will stand up for you. Understand that love requires mankind's attention, for without your attention upon divine love, it cannot flow. The sustaining momentum of your life is the sustaining momentum of your soul. It is that which the great law requires, whereby mankind will be vested with the ever-flowing light of God, never ceasing, the divine Tao, the flow of holy consciousness descending into the chalice of each life. We ask then that the angelic hosts that have descended shall create for you in geometric form within the domain of your consciousness a vital awareness of those infinitudes which are involved in the conscious creation of immortal life all around you. Do you understand what this means? Do you understand this consecration? Do you understand how that as the altar of your individualized hearts holds the flame of God and holds itself in divine readiness to receive the consecrated energies of the sacred fire, you will become a focus of God wherever you walk. And as you become a focus of God, you will not need to call so often unto us, for you will find an expansive activity taking place within you as the promise of the living God, whereby the vital flames exchange themselves continuously. And from your heart to the very heart of God, to your own beloved God presence, you will find an intensified flow the very moment that you desire it, and by that flow you will see the opportunities of life in the streets of life, whereby you can extend unto mankind a greater sense of reality, changing their consciousness and melting with the fervent heat of divine desire all those carnal elements within your own life and the lives of all mankind. It will not be necessary, when this occurs, for you to make it known unto them personally. Beloved hearts, this is only an activity of the human ego. Each individual instead will yield himself to the pressures of his living God presence, manifesting that love from within himself that will flow out into the world and melt those elements of human deceit from the very face of life, until darkness being banished, will find at last in the world of form a manifestation of that love for which you have so often called. I have heard, and God has heard, those calls of your heart that go forth to Him and to us for the manifestation of perfection. But, beloved ones, each cycle must have its fulfillment. Are you not born at a given moment? And do men not then cease to be at a certain moment? Physically speaking, do you not see that the law of cycles comes full cycle, and then at last mankind perceives the administration of cosmic law that produces the miracle of divine love in every heart's chalice? When you understand this, you will be reconsecrated to God, because your desire will so mount up on eagle wings as to frustrate those powers of darkness and those concentrations of energy which represent the failures of mankind. Remaining as the denizens of the astral world, those beings will eventually find the second death as a means of liberation, for they will no longer sustain those focuses of darkness whereby lures are created in the face of mankind that produce the fruit of unkindness and darkness. Instead, mankind will see the production of the fruit of the heart of the living Christ in manifestation within themselves. And when they do, I think then that mankind will be liberated by the flow of divine love. For now abideth faith, for now abideth hope, for now abideth charity, or the fullness of that love which is the heart of God. Have you thought of grace as charity? Have you conceived of it as the charity of your own mighty I Am God presence? Have you recognized it as the charity of your own greater heart that beats the little heart of the individualized manifestation? Well, beloved ones, won't you think of it now and recognize it and perceive its reality? Won't you please be seated? The consecration of the sacred fire that manifests within you is the presence of God. Therefore, he that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. The overcoming power of victory may always be invoked against those dark spirits that seek to penetrate the mind of mankind. Thus he can find deliverance from them and entree into the very vital kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of reality, that each man may find the sacred fulfillment in his own life and world of that foreverness quality that is the immortality of God, the stream of cosmic energy that descends from the heart of the divine presence of life, the stream of divine energy that flows out into the world, that reconsecrates those whose flame has begun to flicker, that also penetrates the darkest facades of man's mind with that reality that is caught in the net of universal love. O love that will not let man go, bestow on all the fruit of life. The flame that beams throughout the night is that which ends each human strife. The glow from sacred fires above creates in all the power to love. And when man does, he will be free to reach the realms of life above. I am Chamuel, archangel of the sacred fire. I bestow on you now the flame of my God mantle. I exorcise out of you now, in the name of Jesus Christ, every spirit that is not of the light. I demand the constant power of love in your life, and I bless the world with that concentration of universal love that flows through me now. Out into the world is love flowing brightly. Out into the world is love flowing nightly. For 14 days from this day I shall cause to be released over the world the penetrating spirit of love in the self-same activity as this day is done. I, Chamuel, have spoken. Gracious ladies and gentlemen, the whispers in your soul that echo there as the voice of God may be heard, even were it soundless sound. For the infinite compassion of the Spirit of God is lofty and noble, and not at all degraded. When men and women come to understand the capacities of their own nature, and behold these capacities as the nature of God, the world will behold for the first time a manifestation of great tranquility, great wisdom, great exercise of the cosmic imagination that scales the stars of the heavens and echoes in the whisper chamber of the soul with the voice of God that spake in the original Garden of Eden, the communion of infinite ecstasy that produces a new miracle esteem in the consciousness of all for the lofty presence of God that is within. Unless God be honored thusly, it is impossible to know the intent of the great white brotherhood, and how the compassion of God may stir man to renewed spiritual ambition in no sense whatsoever of competitiveness, but only of true brotherhood and the understanding of the meaning of true brotherhood unto the earth itself. For the chambers of the heart of the earth contain many secret focuses of light, which, were they to be placed within the availability of man's outreach, would be so very easily desecrated by the profane. We have separated these focuses from materialistic mankind, the veil that covers manifestation of the highest spiritual side of the Godhead is often concealed by the sacred mysteries for the express reason of enhancing the esteem of the true seeker for these qualifications, the creation of an altar for the Spirit that will willingly receive the consecrated energies of God as they descend, and recognize those energies as from the Godhead. And when that recognition is secured, see how the angelic hosts do establish as a focus within the soul of the individual, or even the mass collective, if they would receive it, the abiding presence of the considerations of the living God. For so long now, so many among mankind have consented far too readily to their own desecrations. They have permitted tramp energies of darkness to enter their soul, temple of purification, that which is within them. They have submitted to this and have not understood the grace of the infinite, nor have they comprehended the potential of their own outreach. I know that so many among mankind in the early days of their search are possessed with great zeal. It is almost as though they were a miniature Christ in embryonic manifestation. But then with the passing of the years, the old downward pull energies so easily rekindle themselves in a negative manner within the consciousness and pull that blessed consciousness downward, whereas the call of that soul as a melodic bell inform mankind, if he will listen, and constantly, that the ascension may not be the act of a moment. For when the thought of atomic acceleration is considered by mankind, he must understand that electronic energies descending from the heart of his God presence do bring to his consciousness and awareness that radiant descent of spiritual magnetization that exalts within the being of man a full sense of the immanent reality of God. The reality of God is like a sparkling stream, a fountain of youth, an atomic accelerator, if you will. When mankind begins to receive the spirit of life and uplift, the spirit of regeneration in contrast to generation, there is a natural activity that unfolds within the stream of his consciousness, as well as the physically ordained energies that flow over the physical matrices to establish the quality of God health for all. There are magnificent energies to be garnered from God, which mankind seem to be, at times, almost totally unaware of. And when these energies are considered from the standpoint of a reality, rather than the figment of someone's imagination, there transpires and occurs this aforementioned regeneration from the heart of God to the heart of man. As the Master Jesus so loftily declared, it is not the will of God the Father that any should perish, but that all should come to the knowledge of the truth. What is truth save living light? When man cloaks truth with the garment of words, the messages may be received, but then again, there may be a misinterpretation of meaning, so that the total energies are diverted by the attentions of the mind wrongly poised. When mankind understand that there is a covenant in existence between each individual and the living God presence of that individual, he is able to comprehend the reality of God. For although myriad soul manifestations occur, not only in the billion number, but also in all the inhabited systems of the worlds, of the cosmos, man is able to see that the true manifestation of God is to create. And in this creation of God, there is a multiplicity of images and a transcendental change toward light, at the same time that many are being bound to the Maic ground. The latter is a manifestation entirely of the misuse of solar energies. The state of the world is entirely a result of mankind's misuse of solar energy. Might it not be well, then, in terms of reality, that man should always consider the potential of the divine that is within him, not from the standpoint of his contemporaries or the conditions environmental from both a spiritual and a natural standpoint, but also ought to consider beyond the span of the race mind to the naked possibility of the soul's outreach for God in a new and living way, whereby the vibrancy of the divine nature that is conveyed to each individual soul becomes a tremendous magnet of life that creates in heart, mind, and soul newness of life, not as a sense of frustration, but as an open door into streams of light, synonymous with the manifestation of total God energy revealed to the world at large. The words, "Ye are a city that is set on a hill, that cannot be hid," convey the magnificence of the revelation of God to the soul silently given. When the revelation is silently given, it does not mean that light does not shine. For light does shine, and man becomes the recipient of energies beyond his wildest dreams. I have always thought, since my ascension, of how very meticulous mankind are about their business, particularly if their business is involved in the making of money. I have always noticed how individuals are very careful about what they do in the business world. Well, dear hearts of light, might it not be as great a consideration, at least, for mankind to consider the creation of the God identity? Do you realize that the true raison d'etre of man is the creation of the God part of himself, the formation of the Christ consciousness, and the intentional action whereby he summons from the Godhead those energies ever available to the ascending aspirant? For mankind has a right to be bold. It is even possible that the violent might take the kingdom of heaven by storm, but it is extremely unwise to do so by chemical methods. For when they do, there is a tearing of the chakras and of the delicate energies of the unfolding flower of selfhood. And what manifests is simply a look at the astral levels of consciousness with their elusive manifestations, their garish colorations, and the destructive energies that at first appear so benign, but in reality are only a counterfeit of the real grace of God, which, distilled within the soul, is able to produce manifestations of such loveliness that silence is the password. If you will stop now then to realize that the approach to God ought to be a regular, intentional focalization of vital God energies, you will perceive the role of you, the individual, in fulfilling your contract with deity and finding that which you seek. Isn't it strange that mankind, who have sought so long and have failed so many times, will today, as they did in yesteryear, actually blame the Godhead for their own personal failures? Do you understand then, precious hearts of light, how that this is the result of man's failure to comprehend the realities of the brotherhood, its structurings and connection with the unfolding reality of the Christ consciousness? In reality, all men were intentionally ordained by God to receive the grace native to his soul, native to his very being and presence upon the planetary body. Do you think for one moment that mankind are here simply by whimsy, simply by chance? Do you not understand that you, the physical you, and the mental consciousness and awareness that you have as the grace of God, the control of your thoughts and your feelings, are a precious manifestation focalized in your brain, yes, beloved hearts of light, but holding connection through the vital realities of God, ordained in the four lower bodies and the higher bodies of man, as individualized points of light, over which can flow those contracting energies that are the nature of the Godhead conveyed to man, embodied upon this planet. Do you see how chaos vanishes when man perceives the nature of the universe from this standpoint? Do you see how correct awareness can bring to man a greater sense of contact with God as the most vital contact he can ever establish, a contact that truly is a contract, although some do not see it that way. In reality, when the contact is made and the contract is established, it enables him to understand the nature of his purpose and thus see clearly that fulfillment can come about by his devotion to that purpose. That which seems utterly fanatical to the world is not fanatical at all to those who are today in the radiance in which I dwell. The radiance in which I dwell is the radiance to which you shall come. It is the fulfillment of the heavenly contract with man. For this is established and is so beautiful and so lovely in all of its ramifications that as it begins to expand within you like a tiny seed, it will unfold until there is revealed the fullness of all the magnificent radiation and intent of God. You are not intended to perish. You were created to endure throughout the ages and beyond into the immortal realm where all things are expanded with their lovely contents. I recognize the request of a certain individual who has asked me mentally concerning the control of thoughts and feelings. I want to tell you, first of all, that the control of thoughts and feelings is quite natural. It is unnatural for mankind to be a victim of the energies of others, the protection of your tube of light, and the protection of your faith, the motivations of your will, and the consecrations of the energies of your heart will, if you persist, ultimately in your life weave a protective net of cosmic energy around the force field of selfhood. And then you will find that you are no longer troubled by the thoughts of darkness that are projected against you. It is needful that you understand that the perfection of God, when it enters the stream of the world's consciousness, becomes first of all a target to be seized. For the powers of darkness still remaining in the world and fed daily by millions of life streams continually create human inharmony. Human inharmony then contacts the putrid stream of vile thoughts that are anchored in the planet through planetary and personal momentums. When a son of God determines that his consciousness shall be pure and clean, the beginning of the stream of answer that flows from the Godhead culminates in that reality of God for which he seeks. But if he allows the strands of discouragement interwoven in the warp and woof of life at this moment to enter once again into the stream of his consciousness, to desecrate the altar of being, of course he will experience a series of up and down movements that, like a yo-yo, will bring to him distress of heart. He need not accept this distress, as none of you need to accept. For the moment he understands that God is concerned with him, just as much as with those ascended beings, for he perceives the potential of the soul in all of its pristine beauty. And it is this pristine beauty combined with that which is implanted in the soul that brings the element of courage into the matrices of the mind, that frees the mind from the dregs of darkness still remaining there untransmuted. While we may say then, beware of the action and the actions of untransmuted substance, we also recognize that these trials are in most cases the results of the individual's own karmic record. Why be distressed then concerning your karmic record, when in reality you are able to make those necessary corrections? Even now, the desires of your heart can be fulfilled and the answer rendered. Yet, the answer that is rendered, the judgments that are delivered, may not fully appear at all for a period of time ranging from an hour to a day, to a year, or even to a decade. I admit that sometimes there are discouraging elements in this, but after all, consider for yourself the vapory nature of time. It seems only yesterday that I first made my contact with Saint Germain, that I first established in myself a recognizable focus of the brotherhood, that I first began to realize things that were so contradictory and so revolutionary when placed in a relative sense against the world stream of thought, that there were times in my own search that I wondered about the reality of life at all. Many times in my early stage of spiritual unfoldment, I pondered as to whether I was possessed with madness. Yet chaos was supplanted by perfection of mind and being, and the gentle energies of the soul gradually moved me to conscious awareness of the sealing power and action of the brotherhood. By and by, there returned to me a sense of selfhood that I suddenly realized I must also surrender. And when this awareness came to me, likewise, I perceived that there was no surrender without an attendant manifestation of divine nobility and the unfolding of the soul as a vehicle of the expression of God. Thus, in exchange for all of the energies of myself, the human psyche, there came instead the divine reality, which eventually possessed my whole being until there remained scarcely any of the human manifestation. It was not long after that, and time passed so rapidly, that I was taken to the cave of symbols, that the realities of God were fulfilled in the manifestation of my life and my ascension in the light. I have never regretted the movement of my activities from ranching and moving as a businessman in the Colorado and Rocky Mountain communities to the transfer unto heaven in the sense of oneness with the brotherhood, the ability to move in consciousness all over the world and all over the universe, the ability to consecrate my own energies to God until at last I was able to reach and contact the various magnificent masters of the brotherhood who had gone on before. I tell you, there is nothing to fear, but only a sense of waiting for the manifestation, and while you wait, seeing to it that you perform those acts of purification and recognition of God that are required of the soul as the soul rises in the great transformation of the entire being of man. Of course, there is much that awaits man in the realm of experience, and experience too can become a glittering distraction to man, wherein, by reason of his involvement in the matrices of change, he fails to see the goal, what you might call the pot at the end of the rainbow, simply because of the vicious concentration of those energies which are even now being changed. Do not then allow your minds to be tricked by concentrating upon human personalities, by worrying because certain individuals do not behave as you think they should. After all, you are not to judge the souls of others in commemoration of the law of God revealed by the Christ. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Mankind failed to apprehend the law as the law gradually is repeated, going round the triangle of manifestation. Sometimes they become bored by the manifestations of cosmic law. And this, beloved hearts of light, is simply the result of trifling with the spirit of man by the dark powers that are positioned still in life and await the opportunity to destruct the aspirant from the path. And why do they do this? Beloved ones, they failed. They did not make the grade, and they don't want you to either. If they can succeed in misdirecting you from the path, of causing you to focus upon someone else's actions which you may not even know, which may be only pure speculation, you can very easily find yourself in a position of great terror ultimately. For the carnal mind has a way of accumulating experiences of human terror, which are completely destructive and contradictory. The gentle ministrations of the consciousness of the Christ are the fulfilling roles for all of you. We do not perceive, then, a role for one that differs from the role for another. Men have pondered the thoughts of their various identities in connection with the Godhead, without understanding the meaning of just what is the destiny of all. Albeit there may be different and diverse manifestations, there is but one Spirit, and that one Spirit is the consecration of your very real self. Will you understand with me now, then, that the means of transforming yourself that is at hand can become a glowing coal from the altars of heaven that, once being induced and constrained to enter the soul and abide, will produce all the manifestations that you seek and require, and will discard those manifestations which are not the fullness of universal purpose, but only those controlling factors that wish to control your actions here below, that you may become diverted from the path and may exercise the powers of human imaginations and human frailties, becoming at last a castaway from the brotherhood for the balance of your lives. It is not the will of God that any of you should become castaways, but that all should be restored to your full and rightful place, never practicing the rituals that amount almost to black magic, but ever instead practicing the rituals of the Christ consciousness, that in observing the accusers of the woman who would stone her, also were able to identify their own mistakes and melted away into life, leaving her free. He then said, "Where are thine accusers?" And she said, "There are none, Lord." So let all understand that accusation is not a part of the abundant life, but a fragile trap that can become the source of horrible distortions, producing a sense of imperfection and chaos in the soul. All that are upon the path and all that are not upon the path are children of light still. Those that are upon the path are actually not greater than those who are not. For to sit upon the right hand of God is reserved only for those who choose that complete level of devotion and that position. Man should realize that many aspire, but few fulfill in an era. Yet the control of your life remains in your hands. You can fulfill your destiny. You can ascend in the light. You can achieve perfection. But the greatest way is to concentrate upon the God perfection of life and leave the imperfections of the world unto those who are still children and produce the ritual of judgment, whereas they ought instead to say and cry with a loud voice, "God be merciful to me, a sinner." Truly, imperfection manifests in the world, but those who would aspire to the fullness of God need none of it. What is needed instead is utter devotion unto God. Yet this devotion can very easily and should include the devotion to God in man. For it is totally wrong to worship individuals and not understand that what man needs and requires to pay allegiance to is the God within. And the God within man is like a tiny mustard seed that will grow into a tree that will cover the heavens. And ultimately, those of you from every craft and trade, those of you from every age and physical and mental and spiritual condition will be brought into that cosmic alignment of purpose which will fulfill the desires of the brotherhood and the realities of God in your life. The miracles of the atomic accelerator are yours as you reach that development of spirit which may rightfully claim it. For although men have often thought and sought Messias alone as one to carry their burdens, the law of the universe that still in reality remains in effect is that each man shall bear his own burden, signifying that each one is required by the Godhead to fulfill for themselves their ultimate Christ destiny. The destiny of life is yours today. The destiny of life will always be yours. You cannot lose when you give yourselves without reserve, but you must ever propel and summon purpose, that you may be filled with the righteousness of the living God, who imputed no sin unto Abraham, but rather made him his friend. You are both friends and sons of God. To you is given an opportunity that you know not yet of in its fullness. For what is given to you is but a glimpse. What shall be given to you is the fulfillment of cosmic universal law. As I take my leave of you this evening, I want you to understand how much heaven in reality loves the whole world. For love is dispersed abroad over the currents of the earth, and through the mighty manifestation of the I Am presence, all men may find the fullness of the universal Guru, the universal teacher, the magnificent reality of God, whose flame is the flame of life, both now and forever. Unto that destiny I commend you. Gracious ladies and gentlemen, when long ago the waters covered the earth and the beauty and perfection of God through the evolutionary process began to expand, to vivify, and to create to the vision of man as well as unto God the greatness of the outer manifestation, life was not then also without an inner manifestation of devotion and the formation of the universal Christ within the heart of man. For there is an outer manifestation, an act of creation, which is concerned with the physical aspect of life. And there is also a magnificent inner repository of God good, so filling mankind, flooding mind and heart with those concepts that are benign, that if one will strive to attune with that aspect of his being and not regard the manifestation of selfhood as entirely connected with the physical body, he will find that he is able to externalize a greater portion of the universal aspects of God, and his attendant attunement with that universal God. For the spirit of becoming one with God is essential to the manifestation of perfection in the lives of mankind. You have heard in the recent release of the book Climb the Highest Mountain of the synthetic image. Let it be known unto you then, one and all, that mankind, through their creation of that synthetic image, have established in their world a pseudo-manifestation of universality and of mankind. When they understand the creation of God as a volatile action of the very molten love of his heart, flowing out as a volcano of loveliness into his consciousness and domain, mankind will conceive of the omnipresence of God as touching his life and consuming the dross in that life, little by little, until none remains any more at all. And through the power of transmutation's flame, life is lifted up from a moth or a leaf that is drying or flitting unto that which understands the vibrancy of life and the qualities that direct the life of mankind into not only an intelligent manifestation of perfection, but one that is able to gauge the passions of the living God, of which they also are a part. Let men understand then, in the valor of their heart and the constancy of their being, that the fruition of perfection within their life is not a happenstance, but a manifestation of cosmic courage, which can be drawn forth and magnetized from the heart of God. Nothing happens by chance, beloved ones, for all is a manifestation of some law, either the law by which a man is able to cast himself down as a moth unto the ground, or raise himself up and soar as on eagle wings into the consciousness of God and the throne of cosmic peace. I am called Saint Germain, and I bear to you this day contact with my own living flame. All that I am, all that I hope to be, all that you are, when you say, with God delight the name of God I am, is fulfilled in your consciousness as you offer yourself point by point unto the perfection of God. For although this perfection did manifest with the first day of creation, I can assure you by all that is holy and pure, that mankind's contact with perfection is contact with God through the ritual of the days, and therefore sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, and sufficient unto the day is the righteousness of each man as he apprehends little by little the magnificent Eucharist of the sacred Word coming through the ritual of the days. You are changed, as Paul said, from glory unto glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. But I want you to pause and consider this day the many people throughout the planetary body, those who have a beating heart just as you have, who are ignorant and held in the very bond of ignorance by reason of mankind's stultification in dogma and dogmatism, in strange rituals which do not seem strange to people because they have become familiar. I want all to understand then that whereas man is prone today, whene'er he hears of the great rituals of the brotherhood, to in some way or other have doubts, confusions of mind, and chaos of being, he cannot seem to recognize that the very things with which he identifies today are those things which are common to him by reason of familiarity and the association with them. Let men then raise their heads in triumph toward the skies, for there no longer nor never was a need for mankind to be cast down in the gall of bitterness. When the ritual of the Lamb's blood is understood correctly, mankind perceives that God does not thrust either his beloved Son or anyone into a volcano or into a situation where they become a sacrificial lamb. For each man shall bear his own burden, and each man shall be raised unto the perfection of his Christ self, even as Christ Jesus made known unto mankind long ago in those sacred mysteries which were often not spoken in public, but were spoken privately to his disciples, and have never been recorded anywhere save in the rituals of Akasha. I am Saint Germain, and I come to you today because of your flame of devotion, because of the flame of the devotion of many hearts that are also devotions to the cause of freedom. For the world today is in turmoil as never before, and darkness covers the land. It is a thick darkness as in ancient Egypt, and it does not promote freedom among mankind. Mankind are ever coming more and more into a spirit of bondage because they have not accepted nor understood the rituals of freedom. You then are they to whom heaven has given that God delight, which is to understand the sacred mysteries of God and to be a part of that which is most holy. Yet all your brothers throughout the planetary body are also those who ought to become recipients of God's grace in a most unusual manner, yes, because many of them in past lives have continually manifested greed, selfishness, and a complete trampling upon the things of the Spirit. What you see today manifesting in the physical world of violence, of deceit, of a lack of tranquility is but a manifestation of the violence in which mankind has increasingly lived through the wars of the ages. I want you to understand then that the realm of God peace is a realm which is of God desire. The causes of the sacred fire have never been more sacred, for more and more does the history of the devotion of the martyrs, of the saints, of the chosen ones, manifest itself in the epoch of man's freedom that clearly speaks to each heart and reveals to all who will understand and accept it that heaven is behind the movement of mankind's freedom into that domain which is true Christ freedom, the freedom of the living soul, to exercise its prerogative and choices, and to encase itself no longer in human mold or deceit, but by the power of the transmuting flame, raise itself in God victory and a renewal of that hope which courses through the being of man, through the arteries of man, and through the veins of man, as the living lifeblood of the universal Christ. For all men upon the planetary body were made of one blood, to bear witness to the life force in its essence within them, which is spiritual. And mankind is indeed far more a spirit than he is a physical form manifesting upon the screen of life. I want you to understand that my heart this day is full of devotion for the love of God that you bear within yourself, the devotion and feeling which you have toward all mankind, and the understanding that simply because something was not understood by you yesterday can indeed be with you today and be as real and as genuine as anything else in life has ever been genuine. Will you understand with me today that there was a moment when you trembled upon the wings of birth and you knew not the physical form of life and life manifestation, friends or foes? Yet today mankind comes suddenly into those juxtapositions whereby they meet individuals upon the streets of life that they may not have seen before in their entire embodiment. Yet suddenly that person may become a vital friend or a vital enemy. But what a tragedy it is when mankind choose the prerogative of the latter, for wherever there is discord or inharmony, it immediately produces that dark fruit which is a poison within the world body, and eventually reacts upon the entire human race to produce those manifestations which are vile, to say the least. I want you to understand then that true love, that love which casts out all darkness, that love which establishes the banner of freedom over the world, over the fountain of mankind's hearts, that produces a pool of cosmic reserve energy which can rush in to quench those unfortunate human flames and conflagrations, must indeed be exercised by those who understand it. We do not expect that all shall always understand all of the sacred mysteries, nor do we anticipate that mankind will be able suddenly, in a matter of a day, a month, or a year, to manifest complete understanding. After all, even from our level of ascension, we find at that level that there is a certain ongoingness, a triumph of universal mystery that stands behind the wings, so that each day, even at ascended levels, is a renewal of experience as the transcendency of God manifests itself from glory unto glory, even by His Spirit. Oh, I assure you, beloved ones, you need have no fear of death nor of dying, for I tell you that the greatest of fears are to be found in physical living, where mankind does not understand or apprehend the magnificence of the God estate, and therefore, because of his lack of understanding, produces those unwholesome situations from time to time that are most unfortunate in their manifestation. Do you see? I want you to understand, then, that the closer the world body politic, comes into a state of consonance with the love of God, then shall the world know such magnificence of cosmic invention as will be a triumph not only to the physical body in the overcoming of physical illness, but also as a manifestation of perfection in every realm of invention, transportation, communication, health, and even the production of cosmic abundance and the sense of cosmic abundance, which will enable mankind to draw forth and magnetize from the Godhead those particular facets of triumph which are a mark of cosmic ascendancy, revealing clearly to all who see it that that man or that woman is moving forward day after day in a consciousness of God's victory. I am Saint Germain. I recognize the problems now existing in the world, but I cannot recognize them as though they were a tangible reality that could never be mended. You will recall that there is on record the statement, God can mend thine every flaw. And when mankind thinks of the casting of the Liberty Bell and of that great bell that hangs in Philadelphia, they will understand that God can indeed mend the flaws of their nation, whatever that nation may be. They will understand also that God can mend their individualized faults, whatever that manifestation may be. They will understand that God can perfect the cracks upon the heart of the world and produce in the heart of the world mother the understanding that her children are coming home. And with that advent, the coming home of God's children, the recognition of triumph in this latter-day age of mankind's heresy, we will see produced in the world the revelation of those sacred mysteries of the sacred fire that without question are pouring out upon mankind as never before, the sundering sword of devotion that may in many cases fulfill the words of the living Christ. I am come not to send peace upon earth, but a sword. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. Let all understand then that in matters of spiritual reality, the unfoldment of God's consciousness is what is important. And therefore this is that which we stand behind and back with the full authority of our office. We want you to understand that freedom is more than a name. It is a game indeed that every man can play and every man can assist in. For when the earth is truly a free earth, it will be because it has enlisted the services of the many and not the few. Therefore I say, as I smite you upon the head each one with the sword of my authority and the ring of my consciousness and the power of Archangel Zadkiel, it is to remind you that although you have free will, I also have the same. And I choose to bring you, because you have come within the precinct of my consciousness, that blessing which will establish forever the forces of freedom in the world and will enable you to mark the triumph of the cosmic sword that is a replica of the flaming sword of Eden that guarded the way of the tree of life. For the priesthood of Melchizedek is a reality, and the sacred fire is a reality, and you are a reality, not a figment of someone's imagination. As you stand then, conscious of the triumph of your God freedom that is resident within your souls, let it be in that firmness of mind that determines that none shall ever pass where you stand. For you stand for God and for God truth, and so long as you do, you may take the sword of my office in your hand and declare with full fervor, I am God-free. The earth is God-free, and all life is God-free, now and forever. I thank you.